It's episode 4 of the Piggin Out Podcast. What's going on, y'all? Happy Tuesday. I'm Nate, as always, joined by my co-host Kevin Wilson of the Belly Up Sports Network. Well, we're both from Belly Up Sports, so what am I even saying? Kevin, how you doing, good sir?
We are doing great, and it's a good Tuesday, and we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm excited about today's show, and so I'm ready to do it.
Me too, sir. Me too. We got baseball to talk about. We got basketball as well, the NBA playoffs going on. We got some NFL talk. The NFL has quieted down a little bit, but it's still relevant, of course, as always. So we'll get into all that on this fourth episode for you. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's have some fun. Our first oink, presented by SeatGeek. Use the code BellyUpSports for $20 off your first order. Concerts, comedy shows, sporting events, baseball games, basketball playoff games, all that stuff. SeatGeek is the best place to get your tickets. So shout out to them for sponsoring our first segment, known as First Oink.
That's right.
All right, Kev. So this past weekend, we've seen a couple games of the second round of the NBA playoffs, but basically we just wrapped up the first round. So let's start with that. Your thoughts on the first round of the NBA playoffs as we are going into the second?
Yeah. So for the most part, things weren't exactly how you could have predicted they would go, but they pretty much went, one beat 8, 2 beat 7, and things that stuck out to me is what kind of mess is Milwaukee in?
Oh, unfortunately, yes.
Right? Because they were one of the ones, they were the third seed in the Eastern Conference. They lost. And I was, when it came to game 5, I thought Indiana would show up better than that, but they didn't. But game 6, they put them away. And they've got all kinds of problems up there because you don't know Giannis healthy. Is he going to be win? Is he healthy? And Damian Lillard, who I've always liked because he went to my, local state university up there in Ogden, Utah, but he didn't want to go to Milwaukee. And I kind of, because they talk about how the NBA is a players' league, which of course it is, but Portland didn't give in. He wanted to go to Miami. Well, too bad. You're going to Milwaukee. And so he didn't get any further in Milwaukee than he did in Portland. So I don't see how that's going to – and he's older now. So Milwaukee's got some issues. And the Knicks and Philadelphia, what a great series that was. And Philadelphia found a player this year that I'm sure they really didn't know they had in Tyrese Maxey. And so and that's a big if Joel Embiid could be healthy, those are two players right there that you can have a pretty solid foundation with. But will he be healthy? So they've got that going on. We saw the Oklahoma City Thunder, which we're like, well, are they good enough to be the number 1 seed? Well, yes, they are, because they just swept the Pelicans right out. And so so that was interesting. And then you've got the Cleveland, and you've got Orlando, and that was a 7-game series, and came down to Mr. Donovan Mitchell, who is not on my favorite. He's not getting any gift cards from me on his birthday or anything because he used to play in Utah, and then he left and badmouthed him on the way out the door. So, yeah. Anyone that badmouth Utah, you're out of there as far as I'm concerned. But all he did was score 50 in game 6 and then turn right around and put 39 on them in game 7. So they advanced. And so those are the kind of things I was looking at in the first round. Was there anything that stood out to you?
Similar to what you said. I mean, OKC moving on. They took care of New Orleans easily. Nothing surprised there. The Mavericks, that was a good series between the Clippers and the Mavericks, but it was pretty much the injury to Kawhi Leonard that kind of just messed everything up for Los Angeles there. It's not that the Lakers did anything better. They got gentlemen swept by the Nuggets, so we won't dive into that too much.
Look, we talked about that last week, so
Exactly.
we really don't need. But that's if you bring up the Mavericks and the Clippers, and we talked way back in the beginning. Do we trust the Clippers? And both of us said no, we do not. And so I saw an interesting stat out of the
Okay.
last 20, and since Leonard went to the Clippers, in 20 playoff games that they've played since he went there, he's played in four. Four.
Just
That's
4.
four more than you or I have played for the Clippers. Okay, so he wasn't available. Then you had the one that we really don't trust, Mr. Harden. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the series turning game in Game 5, where was he? 7 points. All right, and then Game 6 comes around, which whatever the Clippers are going to do, they need to do it in Game 6. He had 16 points. Some of these other players, like I just mentioned, Donovan Mitchell had 50,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these other guys had 40 and stuff like that. He had 23 in his last 2 playoff games. Come on now. You're paying him that much money, and so they've got problems. And Mr. Playoff P, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Has there been a more inappropriate nickname taken by a player in the history of basketball? Ever.
Not really, sir. To be honest, playoff P for a guy who just doesn't step up in games like this. I tell you, it was disappointing just to see PG playoff P perform the way he did. In a pivotal Game 6, he just didn't show up. Like, sure, he led the team in scoring, but he only had like 18 points, and he shot.
Yeah, that's not going to get it when Irving and Doncic are scoring 30 plus, right?
Yes,
that's not going to get it done. And so things are looking bleak. But the only good thing I guess you could say if you're a Lakers fan is the Clippers didn't get any further than the Lakers did. And so when you look at the first round, Clippers were a massive disappointment.
They sure were.
Milwaukee, but at least they had a reason. Giannis didn't play at all. And so they've got problems. The Clippers have problems. And we didn't mention the Celtics, all right, because they lost Game 2, and then they played the Celtic basketball. So, and no Jimmy Butler, no Miami Heat in the second round. So,
yes, sir.
That's about all you can say about as far as I'm concerned, about the first round.
Yeah, Boston they let Miami have Game 2, and then they said, okay, well, let's lock back in. So they took care of Games 3, 4, and 5, playing excellent defense, if I might add, against Miami. Game 7 between Cleveland and Orlando, for me, that was fun to watch. Paolo Banchero is going to be, we're going to get to him in a second in terms of our fantasy question, actually. But he played phenomenal in Game 7, just so everyone else didn't really step up. And Indiana, we just talked about that. And then the Knicks. Moving on to the second round after defeating the Sixers. We know Tyrese Maxey. You just mentioned about him not too long ago. He's gonna be an excellent player for years to come. I mean, he's a humble guy. He's mature. He's someone that they can depend on. In the future, for future seasons, I should say, especially with Joel Embiid. With his, I guess, failure to step up in big games in the playoffs.
Well, he was hurt, and he played about as well. You can't lay any of this on Joel Embiid.
100%, no.
You know what I mean? He played hard, but as you're saying, can he be there? And at this stage of his career, the answer is obviously no. He can't be there every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, Philadelphia, what are you going to do?
He did put up 39 points in the last game of the series, but wasn't enough. I would say the game before in Game 5, he put up 19, 16, and 10. Had a not a great shooting night that night. But at the end of the day, it's just that we've seen this before. Embiid always seems to never make it past the second round, and it hurts to watch because this is a guy who's an MVP candidate every single year with this play. In the regular season, he's great. When it comes to the postseason, No matter how well he plays, his team never seems to advance it out. Now, you mentioned it's not entirely his fault. I give some of the blame to him, but at the same time, the supporting cast when it's Tobias Harris and Kelly
Right.
Oubre
And
and
up until this year, it's been James Harden. That's
yeah,
not supporting cast that can make sure brings their lunch money
exactly.
to school. So um, Philadelphia, they've got some questions they got to get answered, and you can't make a whole lot of moves because Joel Embiid's going to be there, Maxi's going to be there. Who are you going to fill in around them?
Exactly. Maybe some better role players that aren't named Tobias Harris is the best
Maybe.
answer for right
Okay,
now.
I like that answer. So having said all that, I guess we can move up to the second round,
Yes, sir.
which we I am absolutely shocked by the performance of the Denver Nuggets.
Ooh,
Okay,
yes.
all
So was I.
right. Okay, so because they last year they never trailed, in their series, right? They won all 4 rounds, all the way to the championship. They were always ahead. They lost, a game or so along the way, but they were never behind. Well, here we are this year, and they played 2 games at home, and they've lost both of them. So I have a real easy answer to this, and I want to see what you have to say.
Of course.
Is Denver are they over with?
I think they are. I think when you consider the fact that Minnesota stole home court from them these past couple games, they dominated last night in game 2, holding the Nuggets to 80 points, and this was without Rudy Gobert, who had to leave the team to for the birth of his child with his wife,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's good on him for that.
yeah, oh, of course, 100%. But the main thing is that they still played excellent defense as a team. Minnesota, it's to the point where as soon as for example Jamal Murray gets the ball from the inbounds pass, right, he's automatically getting picked up by somebody, whether it's Nikhil Alexander Walker or Anthony Edwards or Mike Conley, for example. And let's say Nikola Jokic, right, he hasn't played extremely well in this series. Why?
No,
Because
he
you
has
have
not.
Karl Anthony Towns, right? And then Rudy Gobert in the paint that forces Jokic to, have to work a little harder to get his points compared to the last series against the Lakers. So at that, with the fact that Anthony Edwards is clearly a top 2 player in these playoffs, him and Jalen Brunson, in my opinion, are best players in these playoffs. I just think it's over at this point. You go back home to Minnesota, and at that point, it's like, sure, this series could go maybe 5 or 6 games, but Minnesota's moving on, especially when you just stole 2 games in Denver's house. I do think Minnesota's going to move on.
I agree. That's the easy answer. Yes, Denver, even though they're the defending champions, they are done. And we could switch over to the NHL for a second because the Dallas Stars lost both their first 2 games at home, but rallied and won that series. But
Darn.
the big difference in that was all the games that they played were close. One were on goal games and stuff like that. Denver got blowed out on their home floor, and practically Jamal Murray's had some issues, but he played, and so they had their full complement of players and still only scored 80. All right. We could probably walk around your neighborhood or mine and get some guys together and let's go play, and we'll put up 80 points.
Oh yeah, 100%. Get 6, 7 guys together, put a team
Yeah,
together, put up 80
well,
points.
we could do that. But so things are dark for Denver, which Minnesota's a team that's coming on. We knew that they were talented after they put the absolute beat down on Phoenix, but they're 6-0. Now, if you predicted that they'd be 6-0 at this point, you might as well just cash in because life is golden for you.
Be a psychic or something.
That's right. And so apparently you've got a big payday coming because you have some sort of you can look through the other side and see what's going on in the future. But so 6-0, that's what Denver was a year ago, right? And winning their first series and everything else, and just beating people down. Minnesota's a dangerous team, and whomever they play in the in the championship of the conference championship is going to have their hands full because
Hmm.
Anthony Edwards is as advertised, and they've got size, they've got everything else that you could possibly need, and they're a young team. So if you're like the Lakers or the Clippers or the Warriors, what are you going to do? You've got Minnesota's a young team, Oklahoma City's a young team, uh, Mavericks. Doncic is still 22 or 3, however old he is, and so the West is loaded,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I'm really nobody can probably claim that they're actually a Minnesota fan because who could up till this year. This is the first series that they last round. They haven't won a series since the what was it, the 2000s, somewhere in there. Okay, a long time ago. But so if you're coming along for the ride for Minnesota, that's great for you and all our guys up there in Minneapolis. You know, I'm happy for you because you really been starved for some championship type play up there in Minnesota and just about all their sports really. And
Mm-mm.
so Minnesota's delivering. So it's going to be real interesting to see how they do going forward.
I have to agree. Yeah, I mean they're playing well. The Timberwolves are, and for they're just a young, gritty team led by one of the best young players in the league, in Anthony Edwards, and his confidence is just great to see. For that. So in terms of the other series, we know as we're recording this, Boston and Cleveland are playing game one, so we'll keep an eye on that throughout the show. Knicks and Pacers. Knicks stole game one from Indiana. That was a good game if you guys watched that one. And then also later on tonight, like I said, as we're recording this, the Thunder and Mavericks will kick off game one. So we'll see what happens with that. I guess.
Yeah, and
What are your
we talked
predictions?
about the Mavericks.
Yes.
You know that they're a dangerous team, and they are a dangerous team because this is going to be a really interesting series
Hmm.
because they're two entirely different teams. You got the Mavericks and their size, and Oklahoma City, except for Chet Holmgren, does not have the size, even though they're going to have to play without Maxi Kluber, right?
Hmm. That's
And
right.
so, but they still got Washington, and so they've got the size. And can Oklahoma City hold down the double backcourt? That's going to be key. And what can the Mavericks do about SGA? We'll have to see on that one. So I would not be. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to predict that the Mavericks are going to win that series in 6 games.
Okay. Mavericks 6. Uh, I love Luca. I love Kyrie. I really do. But this Thunder team, they dismantled New Orleans like it was nothing. I do feel like they have the pieces to defend the two stars in Luca and Kyrie. This will be a good series. It won't be easy for OKC. Like head coach of the Thunder, Mark Dagnall, said in his press conference, I think it was today or yesterday, they're gonna lose a game at some point. It's really hard, or at to be honest, impossible to go undefeated throughout the entire playoffs. They're gonna lose a game. It's just a
Yeah,
matter of how they'll bounce back from that adversity. I do think, like you mentioned, it'll go 5 or 6 games. I will go with OKC though. I believe in SGA and his ability to lead his team past a team that's filled with stars, with like Kyrie and Luca. The only concern is with Max Kleber being out, will a guy step up in his place, whether it's PJ Washington or Daniel Gafford, so on and so forth. That is something we'll have to see. What about Boston and Cleveland, Kevin? Who do we have in that one?
I I'm not blown away by Cleveland.
Okay.
Okay, and they had a harder time with Orlando than they should have,
Hmm.
and because Wagner was not what we've seen in the
Yeah.
regular season. Banchero just blew his you know doors off and went out and played big time, but he was the only player for Orlando that stepped up. It took 7 games to beat them, and so now they're going up against the Celtics. Even though we're not sure about Kristaps Porzingis, but even if he doesn't play, Boston, we've talked about it. If they play Boston basketball, this is going to be a quick series. Boston's going to win that. If they couldn't handle Bachero, what are they going to do with Tatum? All right. What are they going to do with Derek White, who all of a sudden reappeared? All right. What are they going to do with those guys? The Celtics are going to win that with 5 at most.
Okay. As we are recording, by the way, Cleveland is up 23-21 over Boston at the moment. So we'll keep you guys updated on that series, or that game, I should say. Jalen Brown up to 11 points leading for them. And then Donovan Mitchell is up to 10 points leading the Cavs in game 1. Knicks and Pace. No. Whoa. Did I just say? Yes, Knicks and Pacers.
Yeah.
Knicks and are we both going Knicks for that one, Kevin? Or
I
do you
think
feel like Indiana?
we're going to both go Knicks because they have Brunson. Indiana does not.
Okay.
And so when you talk about Jalen Brunson, he is putting together something that we've never, ever seen in these playoffs. He's got 4 straight games of 40 points and at least 5 or more assists. No one has ever done that. Ever. You can talk about MJ, you could talk about whomever. No one's ever done that. 4 straight games, 40 points, and 5 or more assists. He every time that the Knicks needed something to happen yesterday, he was right there. And the only thing that gives me a little pause is because the Knicks got 3 points total from their bench. And you got to think that that's going to rear its head at some point because Indiana likes to push. And so how much can they all play 40-plus minutes on the Knicks? If they can, and it's not like they're old men or anything.
No, sir.
And so if they can handle that, because their coach demands that they play 40-plus minutes, and why are you going to put some guy in who's going to give you a point and and a half of rebounds or whatever?
Yeah.
But so that's going to be I think that's going to be an interesting series. But I'm going to go with the Knicks in 6.
I like it. I will go Knicks in 5. I do feel like I understand the 40 minutes concern that you mentioned, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, you can't be playing 40, guys 40 minutes a game repeatedly.
That's what they pay him for.
That's what exactly you pay him to play. And Tom Thibodeau is like, okay, Josh Hart, you play 48 minutes. Dante DiVincenzo, you play 44 minutes.
Hartenstein, get in there.
Get in there.
And so they're all going to play, and if all those guys fill their roles exactly how you want them to. Whereas the Pacers, I like Siakam, not just because he went to my wife's university over there in New Mexico, but he's a great player. Halliburton has some issues.
He does,
and so he defeated my prop bet. So I'll try hard not to hold that against him going forward. But so either consistency with Indiana, you're not getting that. So I think they got their hands full with the Knicks. They're going to go on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Especially from a scoring standpoint, real quick before we go to our fantasy question. From a scoring standpoint, Tyrese is he's been inconsistent for quite a while now.
He has been.
So only having 6 or 8 points against the Knicks in game 1. Maybe he'll bounce back in game 2. I wouldn't really count on it. And because Pascal Siakam has stepped up scoring wise, and guys like
he can do it.
Yeah, Tyrese can score. It's just he's been struggling from the court, and at this point in time, you can't be struggling.
No, this is this is way before your time. But Kenny Loggins sung a song. This is it. Well, this is it.
Oh yeah.
Here. So struggling's not going to get it done for whatever reason. There's some physical issues with Halliburton that's going on there, but unfortunately, this is it. So you got to put those aside, and if you can't, which may be asking, he's not superhuman, obviously. Yeah. But so the Pacers. I grew up in Indiana, as we mentioned way back at the first episode, but it's not going to be pretty for them, I don't think.
All righty. All right, Kevin, here's our fantasy question for the basketball.
Okay. I'm strapped in. I am strapped in.
All right. The question is, which players improved their stock the most going into next season after the season they just had?
Okay. I've got 2 for you.
All right. Okay. Same here.
Okay. So the first player, then there's not a player who improved his stock. No player has improved his stock more than Tyrese Maxey of the
Okay.
Philadelphia 76ers. We talked about him already. And 'cause I went back and did some research, and I was in two fantasy leagues. In the one, he was picked 50th overall, and in the other was picked 48th overall by yours truly. Okay,
Alrighty.
and so I saw some things going on with him that I liked, but there is zero chance you can wait around to the fifth round to get him. He's, I'm not going to say he's going in the first. I don't think that's what's going to happen,
Bit of a
but
reach,
he's
but
right there at the top of that second round. And so no player has improved himself more this year than Tyrese Maxey because you look, he, let me see, because I wrote all this down. He just went off, okay, and against New York, they didn't win, but that wasn't Tyrese Maxey's fault because especially that one game in New York, all right, 7
carried
points
them.
all
Yeah.
by himself in the
Mm-hmm.
last 30 seconds to force overtime, and then of course they won that game. They lost Game 6, but so my first player is Tyrese Maxey.
Okay. Would you like to name your second one, or do you want me to name my one of my players, Kevin?
I can do either way. So, which would you like me to do?
Hit me with your second one. Let's
Hit
see.
me. Okay. So, the second player is Jalen Brunson.
Okay,
Okay.
I like it.
Okay. And so he was 19th overall in the fantasy league, but you could definitely put that aside. He's muscled his way into the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what size of your league, 10, 12, 24, whatever teams are, he is a first round talent. And so, like what you just mentioned, 40 points per game, okay? Assists, everything. And he's doing all this and just, hey, come along with me. And so if you're in the first round, you definitely need to take a look at Jalen Brunson and what kind of talent are we going to have in the first round next year? Because we
Ooh.
talked about that. Who's going to get muscled out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Joel Embiid, back of the bus.
Oh,
Giannis, back of the bus. Okay, Anthony Davis, back of the bus. All those are older players, and you can't guarantee they'll be healthy. These other guys, whether it's Brunson, SGA, Wemby, Edwards, whomever else you want to mention, they're all younger and they will play 70 or more games next year. So those are my two: Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson.
the best ability is availability, right, sir?
Absolutely, absolutely, it is. So when you're trying to get, it's the last, it's right at the end of the season. You're trying to make the playoffs in your fantasy league. Can you, say, well, Giannis, will you be there? Probably not. Okay, Jalen Brunson will be there. Tyrese Maxey will be there. So they'll power you to the playoffs, to the promised land.
Darn right. All right, for me, a couple players I have. One of them is Anthony Edwards. Obviously, he's a superstar. He's shown in the playoffs. In the regular season, he's done the same thing. He averaged about 42.6 fantasy points per game, according to ESPN. That was second best at his position, which is shooting guard. He can run the point at times, but I digress. He's going to be a star. It's clear. He's a leader of that Minnesota team. It used to be Karl Anthony Towns. It's clearly Edwards now, and he's someone that is worth looking to be selected in the first round next year.
Absolutely.
One more guy I have is Paolo Banchero. We just talked about his performance in Game 7 against the Cavs, which wasn't enough, unfortunately. But at the same time, his game has grown exponentially compared to the year before. And I do think that he will continue to develop and continue to get better. And he is, like Anthony Edwards, the leading superstar for a young Magic team who, in a way, does need a few more pieces if they want to keep contending in the East. But at least they have their main guy, and that's going to be the former Duke product in Paolo Banchero. So shout out to Banchero, shout out to Edwards, to Maxey, and to Brunson, and other guys who might show up or who have improved their stock heading into next season. We shift.
We shift.
We shift from the court to the field. Our second oink is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. He used to go belly up for 50% off your order. Shout out to Righteous Felon for sponsoring the segment. I want to get straight to it because you just showed the Dodgers jersey, Kevin, and I got to tell you, I don't know what to say. I mean, you got a team with Betts and Ohtani and Freeman. Those are the top three guys in the top of your lineup. And then to make things even better, you have Tyler Glasnow, who was basically the ace to start the year. And then I'm hearing, Walter Buehler is back, and
He pitched yesterday, so
4 innings. So we're gonna cover baseball as
that's
a
right.
whole in this segment, but I think we just might as well start with one of the best teams in the National League, in the LA Dodgers. We
Okay,
covered we
I'm
covered
with you.
Oakland. Yeah.
As I said, Dodgers right there, and you mentioned Ohtani. Okay,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is what he's done in his last 4 games:
Let's hear
two
it.
for three, homer, 2 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. 4 for
Ooh.
4, 2 homers, 3 RBIs. 3 for
Okay.
5, home run, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. He
Ooh.
only had 1 hit yesterday, but
Ah.
he scored a run, had an RBI, and stole 2 bases. So the man has gone sub-nuclear. Okay, we all knew that he was the best player in baseball. We knew that, even though he's not pitching.
Mhm.
And the man, it's like he's almost hitting 400. Okay, especially of late. And so he's put that whole thing with the gambling and everything else. Go ahead and put my, former, best friend, whatever, put him in the Hooskow. All right. And so he's just turned that whole thing and forgotten that whole thing happened. And one of the more exciting series for me this past weekend, because the Dodgers and the Braves played each other. The Braves came in with the best record in the National League.
Mhm.
They left in second place in the NL East because they got swept by the Dodgers.
Brooms.
And brooms. And so the Dodgers, we were a couple weeks ago, Vince and I, we're like, oh no, they're only 4 games above 500, whatever it was. No worries now, because they went out on the road, found their center, and now Padres are making desperate moves, going out and getting, a DH from Miami.
Mhm.
Okay, which we talked about that on our show. We both like that for the Padres, but it's not going to be nearly enough. The Dodgers are on their way to the NL West Championship.
And are we really surprised, Kevin? No,
No,
because this team is just loaded. Across the roster. I mean, the fact that Buehler came back last night, pitched 4 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs. He allowed 2 runs in the first inning, but that was pretty much it. He was solid the rest of the way during his appearance. I think it was Ryan. No, who came in relief after him? Who
I
was
would
it?
have to look at my trusty. Okay, we do research on this show, by the way.
We do.
Okay,
We do.
we
We
do.
do.
All right, so I'm going back to yesterday. There they are, Dodgers 6-3. They won.
Ryan
How about
Yarbrough.
Okay,
Ryan Yarbrough
so
was his name.
Ryan Yarbrough did come in, and he did this for Tampa for years.
There you go. That's
Okay,
right. That's right.
all right. So he's come over to the Dodgers, pitched 3 innings, around no runs on 1 hit, no walks, 2 strikeouts. His ERA is 2.70. His WHIP is 0.70.
Oof.
Okay, so I talked in our show about Daniel Hudson needs to
Uh-huh.
go because he
Okay.
is absolutely atrocious out of their bullpen. But Yarbrough, good to go. And
Okay.
so, and you mentioned Buehler, walked none.
That's a good thing.
So that
See? Yeah.
absolutely. So that's the key part of that whole scenario. He walked none. So you talk about the starting pitching of the Dodgers and Yamamoto, who looked like he was about to be hit by a train going full speed when he pitched in Korea. But ever since then has been on point. And so the pitching was a thing that I was a little concerned about the Dodgers, but they've answered that. Tyler Glasnow has so far been the ace. I had questions about him because his high in the majors, 120 innings. That's not going to get it done. But so far, no complaints here.
Dodgers are 12-2 in their last 14 games. Ohtani, you mentioned, almost batting 400. Basically, he's batting 370 at the moment, according to ESPN. And Mookie Betts isn't too far behind, batting 356. And Will Smith, by the way, we talk about
Yes.
Freeman and Ohtani and Betts. Will Smith is batting 336.
All
That's
he's
good
doing
for
is
A's.
hitting. All he's doing is hitting cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So he comes up. He's got Ohtani. He's got Freeman. He's got Betts on base. I'll just give you a base hit to left field, 2-run score.
There you go.
So
Love to see it. Shout out to the Dodgers, and then yeah, they're playing really well. And you mentioned Tyler Glasnow, 2.70 ERA. He's 6-1 as he started for the Dodgers. So,
and he's a guy that you could have had in the second round of your fantasy drafts. Okay, I didn't
exactly.
pull the trigger because I was concerned, like I said, about his innings.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, if all these players and pitchers are being hurt throughout the universe, Strider and you could just go on and on and on.
Yep.
But Glasnow, rock solid.
I like it. Let's go, I guess, a little up north, Kev. We'll go to the Oakland
ready for you.
Athletics.
I'm ready for it.
I could have sat here and give you some positives for the past couple of days for the A's, but they've done nothing but go back to the losing way. But let's focus on the positives a little bit, right? They did win on Saturday.
They did.
It was a rain delay in that game. I was waiting to watch that one. Waited about a couple hours or so, and they said, "All right, we'll play at 4 p.m. Pacific time." I said, "Okay, I'll give it a little bit of a watch." So they scored 2 runs in the second, or a run or two. I was like, "Okay, that's fine." Then they kept scoring, Kev.
That's right, and kept
to the point where it was like, how many are we gonna score? They scored 20. They scored 20 against the Marlins, and
there was a you could have put money that the Oakland A's wouldn't score 20 runs in a week.
Oh
before
yeah,
the season began.
100%.
Right, and so they put 20 in one game, and so the fun times, for whoever in Oakland that still cares about them.
Yep.
And if they've got some younger players, they've got pitching, they've got the bullpen, as we talked about Mr. Miller last week.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll be in Las Vegas by the time they pull it all together. But
unfortunately,
you got to like the direction that the players at least are going in.
Yeah, I feel like it's just the attitude. This is, I guess they're like, oh, this is our last year in Oakland. Let's give it our best every night and go from there. I mean, they just went off a 6-game winning streak. The players are young guys like well, I just lost my train of thought. Mason Miller, right? Lucien Erceg, the setup man. It's mostly the pitching staff that has impressed me the most from this recent run of games. Sure, the hitting's been here and there. I mean, obviously they put up 20 runs, so something went right on that day with the offense. Brent Rooker.
Rooker.
Yeah, he homered twice.
No, he just didn't homer twice, but he did in the same inning. So you gotta like that.
That is true. That is true. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously at the beginning of the season, I had my doubts about him, thinking like, okay, he can't have the same success like he did last year. I mean, because he came out of nowhere for the A's last year. This year went off to, he struggled a little bit to start, but he's picked it up as of recently. Guys like, just the young guys have stepped up in a way. Esther Ruiz has played well at some points here and there. We have, hopefully when he gets back soon, Zach Geloff, the second baseman, hopefully he gets things going as well. We just called up Brett Harris from the AAA. He hit a couple of homers as well in that 20-run outburst on Saturday. So, just seeing the young guys plus the pitching staff play well during their winning streak, it was inspiring to see. Now, obviously, the past 3 games haven't been the nicest to the A's. They lost 12-3 in that final game on Sunday against the Marlins, and they lost 4-2 after having actually a 2-1 lead heading into the 8th inning. They blew that one, and they lost it on Monday. And then today, which was a weird game, right? We talked about it before we started, how it was a way early of a game to have on a Tuesday.
Right. And why are you doing that, especially in Oakland?
Yeah.
So baseball, the commissioner, Mr. Manfred, we know you're a fan of our show. We know this. All right. So maybe you can drop us a little, send us a tweets. They still call them tweets? I don't even know.
That is correct. Yes, they do, sir.
Okay. So just send us a message, explain why are you playing baseball at what was it, 1:30? Is that what time it was in California when the game started?
Actually, 12:37.
12:37. Okay, so please explain why you're playing baseball at 12:37 at any time in Oakland. Okay, but
On a weekday out of all days.
on a weekday, I've never understood that. I love baseball; it's my passion, but I don't understand why they play so many day games during, the spring.
Hmm.
I understand they want teams to be able to get out and go to their next series or whatever, but who's supposed to go to a game that starts at 12:37 p.m.? Who exactly?
Well, guess what? Tomorrow's game, 12:37.
Well, I get that because tomorrow they're playing a doubleheader. So
True.
they've got to play a game unless you want. I've been to Oakland, okay, and I know for a fact that BART shuts down at midnight. I know this because that's what happened to me. Okay,
Oh,
because we went to the game, there was rain. You mentioned rain, okay, and they started the game back up, and they came over the announcement and said, "Hey, BART shuts down at midnight. So if you want to get back to San Francisco, you need to get on the train."
uh-huh.
And so, because we were on a ship, we were visiting San Francisco, and we're like, well, we don't want to get stuck in Oakland. We wouldn't know how in the world to get back.
Yeah.
So we had to leave the game early. So
Aw.
I get why they're playing a game when there's a doubleheader. I understand that. I get that. So that's going to lead into a fantasy here in a minute of who
Yep.
I have to pick up because of that. And so, but I don't want to jump too far out ahead
No,
unless
you're
you're ready
you're
for that.
Yeah, just some final points. I mean, the A's, like, one more time, they put up 20 runs, 20 runs on Saturday. Since then, they've allowed a total of 31 runs in the past 3 games to their opponents. So they use up all their scoring, it
Okay,
seems like,
so
on
maybe
Saturday.
JP Sears. Okay, maybe JP Sears can turn that around,
I hope
and
so.
he's a pitcher. Out of many of the pitchers that are out there, JP Sears is one of the ones that you don't hear about all the time,
Hmm.
but he is pitching well. And I'm talking real well. And he held New York, the Yankees down, and so I like what JP Sears is doing.
I'm not complaining about his play either, to be honest. He's been playing pretty well, especially his most recent start. He was absolutely phenomenal. So shout out to him for his growth. As we shift towards our fantasy question for baseball. And the question is this, Kev.
Okay.
Who are some players out there in fantasy that are worth picking up this week?
Okay. So as we mentioned, doubleheader tomorrow
Yes.
in Oakland. Okay. And the first player I'm going to mention is the one that you stole. Okay.
Darn.
Yeah. As I know you watch our show, and I talked about Abraham Toro was my
Okay.
number one pickup of the week.
Could I
And so
interrupt you
what?
for a second if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
go ahead.
I don't think we're friends this week, right, Kevin?
That's right.
We're not friends
That's
this
right.
week.
That's right.
Okay.
And so uh, because Texas, the Rangers are up the road from me, and
Oh, I'm
you're
not talking about. I'm talking about something else.
okay. So that's not helping our situation because the Rangers and A's are playing each other. But yeah, you sniped my guy. All right. And
Okay.
so and Abraham Toro is a guy that I really, really like. Okay.
Okay.
And he's only at 6.5%, which you were part of that. Okay. But he
Oops.
plays first, second, and third. I like players that have multi-positional eligibility. He has that. And so when you look at this, okay, so he went 2 for 3, 2 for 4, 2 for 5. Then he had no hits in one game, so he said, okay. And yesterday he went out and had 3 hits. All right. So he's hot.
He is.
So in a doubleheader scenario, Abraham Toro is the guy you want to get in your lineups
Okay.
for tomorrow. Okay. And I talked about Brent Hooker. He's at 16.8%. He has 3 homers in 2 games
Yes.
going into today. All right. So you want him. And then I'm going to diverge over to the Rangers because Nathaniel Lowe, first baseman for the Rangers, he'll
Okay.
be in. Okay. He's at 26%, so he may not be universally available, but He has hits in 9 of his last 11 games. So if and well, he probably won't play one of the games because JP Sears is pitching one of them, but he'll be in the other game. And he's somebody who he was started the season hurt, but he's back. And so if you're looking for a first baseman, not just tomorrow but also long term, Nathaniel Lowe is who you want to look at.
Okay. I say that we're not friends, Kev, this week. It has nothing to do with the Rangers or the A's.
Okay,
I
talk to me.
Here's the thing, Kevin.
Okay.
I don't take this seriously. I enjoy the competition, Kev.
Oh yes, and that's right because you and I are playing each other this week.
But why this week, Kev? You're up by 80 points, Kev. I don't got a shot.
Well, the only thing I'll say to that is because I've seen it where I've in this league, and I was trailing early on, and just keep treading water, all right. And so, but I will say that when you play me, you're getting me, with both barrels.
Uh-huh.
There's no leniency. I don't care who I'm playing, if it's you or Vince, Mike, whomever it is. Okay, I'm putting the stepping on the gas pedal for all I can. Okay, and trying to just do one of those jumps across the river like Evel Knievel used to do. All right. So yeah, so I'm definitely with you. You and I are playing each other. So, I wish no ill will
No, of
to
course.
anyone, but if your car happens to go off the side of the road, oh well.
It's not fair. Marcus Semien just put up 16 points today. It's not fair. My guys haven't
He
put
did.
up
I
16 points
saw
total.
that.
Oh, I know you saw that. My guys came and put up 16 points today. Golly. I mean, look, the goal for me, like we discussed on your show with Vince, the fantasy baseball draft, my goal is to make the playoffs, Kevin. And the more I play you, the more my chances lower because you're frustrating to play. It's not fair because you know more than me, and it's like.
Well, unfortunately for me, because I had a pretty poor start.
Okay.
Okay. And so, you say that the goal is to make the playoffs. Well, I've got to win. Right?
Fair enough.
Going forward, if I want to make the playoffs, I got to win. So, like I said, the throttle is all the way to the floor.
Well, you are 3-3. I'm 4-2, but I might as well be a 4-3 already at this point because,
like I said, I'm coming.
Oh, trust me, we all know you're on the way, Kevin. You're like breathing behind my back as we speak. I'll give you a couple players, Kev, for people to
go ahead.
get in fantasy this week. Mike Talkman, the outfielder from the Chicago Cubs, he's currently 6th in fantasy points. Just came off a 2 for 4 performance where he put up 5 fantasy points. He averages about 2.3 a game. Owned in 9.3% of the league, so he's someone to watch out for. He's been a bit of a surprise, or if I'm not mistaken, for the Cubbies.
Yeah, the Cubs. Vince calling down, the curse from on high, but it's affected some players, but the Cubs are playing well.
100%.
So we'll have to see just how effective this curse is going forward.
Yes, sir, indeed. Another guy I have is you like this guy, Andy Pages. Pages, but no, it's Pages.
Pages, yeah.
Pages. There we go.
Okay.
He recently had a hot streak, 10-game hitting streak. Actually, he's been great.
Kidding.
Oh, he's been great.
Yeah.
He's been putting up solid fantasy numbers. He had 42 fantasy points during that hot streak of his. He's owned in 29.4% of leagues, so he'll be on teams, but he may be out there waiting in the waivers. Spoiler alert, Kev, don't even think about going to find those players because those guys are on my team already, so don't even start.
Okay, so as I mentioned, because you watched our show, and
exactly.
So I'm going to get him before Kevin gets him.
Okay.
Because I've had, Vince's dad has done that, where
really?
I talk about somebody, and then the show ends, and there it is. Dale has picked up whomever. I'm like, dude, you didn't even let me get the show over with.
Like, let me finish first.
That's the way. You gotta be ruthless. Okay.
That's true.
When you're playing fantasy.
Oh
If
yeah.
your goal is to win, which mine is,
No sympathy.
no sympathy. Like I'm saying, like I said, if your car goes off the side of the bridge, that's just the way it goes. Fantasy, speaking.
I just had to play it this week, huh, Kev? Just had
That's
to.
right. It has to happen. It'll happen again before the end of the season. So just be, you're out there and just be looking for that because it's going to be a fireworks show.
I really don't want to play you anymore. I don't want to do it, Kev. You don't understand. Let me check the schedule real quick. Let me see when I play you again.
Okay.
Because
All right. Let me. As I said, we do research. Okay.
even we do it on live on the show, we still do
Live
it.
on the air. Ryan is not the only one that can do research.
I
Okay.
play you in July. Oh, great. Okay, I have two
Okay.
months to prepare for myself.
Okay. So let me come over here. Schedule. Okay. So I'm playing you right now. I got Vince in a couple of weeks. Then I got Chase the week after that. Dale got June 10th. All right. And yep, July 8th to the 21st. That includes the All Star game break.
I gotta play for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So you definitely better put some double straps going on right there. So,
Kevin,
yeah.
who makes
So,
this schedule?
that's something that's outside our control. ESPN's the one that does that. Okay. So you got reason to view the show. All right. Because you're going to definitely want to stand by and see what happens in July.
I hate the fantasy life. Let's just let's let's move
Let's
on to the
Okay, so we can move
gridiron.
on. All right. All right. So move on to NFL.
Our third oink of the day is presented
Third
by
only.
Yeet Sunglasses.
That's right.
Use the code belly up for 10% off your order from Yeet Sunglasses. Amazing sunglasses, affordable, high quality materials, and they look outstanding. So shout out to Yeets for sponsoring our third oink. I can't get over the fact that I got playing for 2 weeks in July. Anyways, I wanted to quickly cover actually a couple things. Because I received the headline. Oh, do you mind if we go back to the basketball world real quick?
No, please do.
Okay. Shout out to Victor Wembanyama. He won Rookie of the Year yesterday.
That's right. He did. I saw that. Who else was going to win that?
No one.
Nobody else should have actually dressed up for that award because no one else was going to win it.
Rudy Gobert won Defensive Player of the Year as of today. So shout out to him. So not only did he celebrate the birth of his child, but also won Defensive Player of the Year.
Didn't somebody complain that he won that? I'm trying to if I saw that, if it was somebody, Williamson or somebody saying, "Hey, I never get to win the award because you're never on the court." First of all, but
Williamson's not great of a defensive player anyway in the first place. So if he
that's
did
right.
say that,
Okay, so it probably wasn't him, but
yeah,
somebody was saying, "Hey, I'm much better defense." Maybe it was Anthony Davis that said
I think
that.
it was Davis.
Okay, and nobody's falling over themselves to watch Anthony Davis play defense, even though
Please.
he can grab 20 rebounds. Okay, but is there any sour grapes going on right there or what?
And then Jamal Murray avoids a suspension after throwing a heat pad
I
on
heard
the
that.
court. So he avoids a suspension, but he will be fined $100,000.
Okay, it's just like me getting pulled over and then the fine's like $68. Well, there's no fine for by the police for $68, but
yeah, close
I'm
enough.
just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Closest analogy to it.
Yeah.
And then from an NFL standpoint, Tyler Boyd signed with the Tennessee Titans today, 1-year deal as he joins Tennessee and the receiving corps over there. So now Tennessee has Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and now Tyler Boyd to help out Will Levis over there in the AFC North or South.
Okay. While we're talking about breaking news, I saw this just before I came out here that Rashid Rice, who involved in all that with the racing down the freeway,
yes,
is now being investigated for an assault situation here in the Dallas area that happened yesterday.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so if you've got Rashid Rice, which I do, by the way, one of my dynasty teams.
Shoot.
It's like I said, the car's rolling, okay, and it's going towards at full speed towards the edge, and it's not going to be good. He might who knows what. I thought he was going to miss half the season already anyway,
Which he
and
was.
so
Yeah, he's yeah.
yeah, so whatever happens with this assault thing, I don't know who he assaulted, but it was one of those situations where it was it's like 2, 3 in the morning. What are you doing at 2, 3 in the morning, anyways? Nothing good happens. Okay, so we'll have to see on that. So if you've got Rasheed Rice, as I do, stand by for heavy rolls because it's not going to be pretty.
Assaulting a photographer is the at a nightclub is the
Is that what it is?
details.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
apparently. So
Okay.
I
Assaulting. Okay. So you're going to assault somebody who can record the assault. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
it's like nice common sense.
Yeah. So, yay, Rasheed Rice. Okay. You've got you win the Intelligent Man of the Year award. All right. So there we go.
Alrighty. So I want to mention a few things from NFL standpoint. St. Louis. We know about the Rams, Kev. You know how they used
Yeah.
to have the Rams or St. Louis
Yeah.
used to have the Rams and whatnot. But now they have the St. Louis Battlehawks. And I don't want to go too much into the UFL because that's really not my area of expertise. Yeah, they're 5-1. They have guys like AJ McCarron and Hakeem Butler and guys like that. But the more notable thing I wanted to mention the St. Louis Battlehawks for was because they just had a game where they had 32,369 fans. That's relevant because I feel like with the attendance they've been having, they deserve an NFL team again. Don't you think?
I do. And when you first mentioned this, because I don't follow the
Yeah, I don't
UFL or
either. I just I don't either.
XFL or XFL, whatever it is. But because there's a team in Arlington that's not very good here. Okay, Renegades. They're not playing very well. But when I was looking at this, and you look at the attendance, for these other games, 8,000, 7,000, 9,000, and you go to the St. Louis, 34,000, 31,000, and so that doesn't really surprise me because the Cardinals have probably the best fan base to be found in baseball.
Mhm.
Okay, and they've struggled. They've been sorry for the last year more or so, but they still get 40,000 fans in that stadium every night. Doesn't matter if you want to know who's going to these games at 12:37. It's Cardinal fans. Okay,
Fair enough.
so that's something that the NFL is definitely going to want to look into because if they can get 34,000 for the UFL, they can definitely get some fans for an NFL team going on over there.
Off the top of your head, could you think of a name for the St. Louis team if they were to add it as an expansion team?
If they
Basically?
wanted to incorporate the Battlehawks, I think that's a great name, right?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I
Why
can see it.
not? Okay. The UFL team may not appreciate that,
Nah,
but
but does the NFL care, Kev?
no.
No.
NFL, they're still drinking up, after the Super Bowl over
Oh
there.
yeah.
But yeah. So NFL, we know that you like to watch our show as well. All right. So you definitely need to look into bring in an NFL team to St. Louis. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for St. Louis because the Rams got stolen. Well, guess what? You stole them from LA first.
Ooh. Tell
Okay,
them, Kev.
that's right, because they were in LA, right, for years. They were in Cleveland if you want to get that far back into it. But
Oh,
the Rams went to St. Louis. They actually won a Super Bowl for St. Louis, and so I don't cry too hard for St. Louis because they lost a team that they didn't have to begin with in the first place. And so, but they support their team like, no other city. So, NFL might want to look into a team. Just make sure it's got nothing to do with, whoever named the Washington team, the Commanders. Okay, because I was in the Navy, but Commanders, that's terrible. All right, so
Not the best
terrible,
name to
terrible,
pick your
terrible.
dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So whoever did that, just keep them away from St. Louis, and I think we'll be all right.
fair enough to me. All right, Kev, I want to go from that to, I guess, more relevant NFL news, and that's Odell Beckham Jr.
Okay.
I don't want to hear anything about OBJ and the Giants, and because I could go
No,
on for
I'm not getting into that. No. Only thing
okay.
that I'll say
Okay.
is when we're talking about OBJ, has there ever been a player who's gained more from one catch ever in the history of football?
No, but I mean, he did put up good statistical numbers before the camp.
He did. He had a few good seasons, but the way some guys talk about him, it's like he's Jerry Rice or something.
Yeah,
And
that is fair. That is fair.
he's never been that. Okay. As I
He was
wrote this down, because Odell Beckham, all right. You know how many catches he had a year ago?
35.
35. You are correct. Okay. 2021, he had 44 catches. You have to go all the way back to 2019 when he had 74 catches for 1,035 yards. Okay. So that's 5 years ago. And so when you look at this, and the thing that stood out to the most to me, because I'll say this, I don't want OBJ on my fantasy team. I don't want it. And this is the reason why I'm saying this, because, since Mike McDaniel has been the coach of the Miami Dolphins, no player other than Tyreek Hill and Eric Waddle has caught more than 32 passes in a season. No one else. They funnel the ball to the two of them. They drafted two wide receivers, rookies named Washington. Okay. And so it's not like he's going to step in there, even if he was the third wide receiver for sure. He's got no path to, more than 30 catches. And so I'm not seeing it. I'm not going to plan or scheme to how I can get OBJ on my fantasy team.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the details for the contract as you were talking, Kev. 1 year deal, $3 million. That could go up to 8.25 with incentives. Yeah, sure, details, whatever.
Right. Yeah, incentives, which he's not going to get any of them.
That is true. I see it as the fact that he is, in terms of a third option, he is a good third option to have on the team. I mean, yeah, they drafted two rookies. Yeah, they have Braxton Berrios, who was the third guy last year.
Yeah, nobody's falling over themselves about Braxton Berrios either.
Oh, no, 100%. But it is the name, and it's the fact that he can be productive to some extent. I mean, last year you mentioned he only had 35 catches. It's what he did with those 35 catches, and he racked up about 565 receiving yards, and that's the second most among any NFL player last year who had 35 or fewer receptions. So I mean, it's a low risk, high reward type of thing. I don't expect big things from Odell Beckham Jr. from in a real life and or fantasy perspective. I personally, not to be biased, but I would take a late round pick on him. I'm not saying I'd take him in my first 10 rounds, but say if he's available with my second or last pick, I give him a shot.
Well, if it's the last round and he's sitting there,
if he's still there, yeah.
But as far as I'm looking for more productive players, 100%. Especially in Dynasty. Mm-hmm. All right. That's what, pretty much what we're talking about here is Dynasty. Mm-hmm. And as Billy keeps saying, if it's not Dynasty, what are we doing? And so it doesn't have a whole lot of appeal to me.
Okay. It's fair. It could go both ways. I think for me, he wasn't that bad last year. Like, he produced. I mean, he finished with a 76.1 Pro Football Focus grade. So that's impressive as it is when he was playing. So,
76 is only a C, right?
From a Pro Football Focus standpoint, I understand where you're coming from. But, like, well, I won't get too specific. We'll call it a C.
Maybe a C plus. Okay.
There you go. Okay, we'll give it a C plus C. Same thing. Average, basically, is what he is. But at the same time,
And because they're in the offense that likes to throw the ball, but
Mm-hmm.
they like to throw the ball to their first two guys.
Hill and
And this
Waddle.
is not taking into account the running game and the backs
Oh.
catch the ball coming out of the backfield, especially Achane. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's not enough balls to go around to make OBJ relevant to me. You would think going to Miami in that offense, but just the way they play their game, that he's not going to get what the third wide receiver on another team might, that plays a three wide receiver set. He's
Mm-hmm.
not getting that this year.
Yeah, unless Tyreek or Waddle go down, like you just mentioned, just a average receiver to consider on your fantasy team. But yeah, I mean, at least he got another deal, so shout out to him. Good to get
No,
another
yeah,
deal.
yeah. Like I said, he had one catch and he's made a career out of it.
Fair enough, Kevin. Before we, before we go, I want to talk about the quarterbacks real quick. I know it's early; we're in May still, but I do
Right.
want to kind of rank our top five quarterbacks from a fantasy perspective. So,
Okay.
who are your top five, and why do you have them in that order?
Okay. So my top five, and I've been doing some looking around just to see where things are kind of shaking out. And people are still disrespecting Patrick Mahomes.
They
Okay,
keep
to me,
doing it, Kevin. They keep
they
doing it. I don't
they
know
they
why.
do it, and he is the number one. Why? Because he is okay.
Mm-hmm.
He produces, and they got him some help just in case Rasheed Rice is in fact suspended. They got us some help in the first round of the draft, and so I like him number one
Okay.
overall. As far as it doesn't, I guess it really doesn't matter if it's dynasty, redraft, two quarterbacks, eight quarterbacks. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Patrick Mahomes is number one.
Yeah, same here. I put him number one on my rankings as well. I mean, this guy, he just no matter who he has on his team, it may be a receiving core that looks underwhelming. He somehow wins the Super Bowl because of it. And I know fantasy has nothing to do with Super Bowl, but at the same time, like this guy just puts up numbers like it's no other. And he, once again, he's gonna have another underwhelming receiving core. But this is Patrick Mahomes we're talking about, and he's gonna make this work. So Mahomes, no matter who he has at wide receiver or tight end or whatever the case may be, he will be number one on my rankings. And so the same can be said for
Okay,
yours.
so number two, almost reluctantly, okay,
Reluctantly. Okay.
reluctantly, is Josh Allen. I like his talent. I like him a lot. I like his rushing upside,
Okay.
and um, Buffalo is doing some shifting. Right? They sent out their, which I really don't. Diggs is not a good teammate to have, but
Yeah.
so that might be a positive thing. So we're gonna have to
Okay.
see. But when Josh Allen showed it going down the stretch, what kind of quarterback he can be. All right, and we know what kind of quarterback he can be. He could go out there and throw it for 300 yards and have 103 yards rushing. Okay, so I still think that he's a guy that I would have in my number two hole, but like I said, almost reluctantly because I don't know what kind of supporting cast he's going to have.
I unfortunately have Allen at number 4.
Okay,
In my 2 spot, I have actually Lamar Jackson.
okay,
I
okay.
do like
I wouldn't argue. I would not argue and
yeah.
say, "Oh man, come on, dude, you know you're wrong."
It's like,
But
what
I'm
are you
not going to do
doing?
that.
Lamar at 2, huh? No, that's not the case here.
No,
I mean,
I'm
so
not going to do that.
we're talking about the reigning MVP. Talking about a guy with amazing rushing upside. He's gonna have Mark Andrews back this upcoming season. Zay Flowers is growing into one of the best young receivers in the league. Isaiah likely has been solid, and you have Derrick Henry. So those read option plays are going to be absolutely lethal for Baltimore. And Lamar he's still gonna get his rushing numbers regardless, no matter what anyone says about Derrick Henry eating into his rushing totals. That's not going to affect anything. So I think Lamar with that, along with his arm, I do feel like he will be the second best quarterback in my fantasy rankings per se.
Okay,
I
so
assume he's in your top 5 somewhere.
yeah, he's for all the reasons you just mentioned, he's number three for me. Wouldn't take a whole lot of arguing for move him up in the rankings. And a lot of what I was looking at have Josh Allen number one, which I'm not doing that. But these two guys right here, and you mentioned about the rushing upside of Jackson, and this is regular season that we're talking about.
Correct.
And so that has a lot to do with it, okay? Because the playoff of Lamar Jackson has been disappointing at best, disappearing at, I guess you could say, at worst, okay? And but that's got nothing to do with fantasy. So he is a solid guy that you could put either second. I got him third, but I wouldn't go. It wouldn't knock me over if like you just said, to argue that he's number two.
At 3. Okay, so I consider the fact about his weapons around him. He has a lot of weapons. This guy has. It's good old Brock Purdy. I have him as number 3 on my list. Deebo Samuel, Brendan Ayuk. They drafted 2 wide receivers, which I still don't understand to this day. I won't do it too much, but they have weapons.
When it comes to the 49ers, if they all just went off a cliff, that would be fine with me. So.
The 49ers have weapons all over the field. Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, George Kittle at tight end. We mentioned Deebo and Ayuk, and they drafted 2 other guys as well. I didn't even mention Ronnie Bell yet, who I have high hopes for as a wide receiver number 3, but I digress. This Niners team is loaded. I mean, and Brock Purdy literally succeeded last year. He was an MVP candidate for all of last season. He pretty much was. And I do feel like with the weapons he has returning, he definitely should produce very well from a fantasy perspective. I mean, he was one of the top passers in the league last year from a statistical standpoint. And obviously, statistical standpoint, if you're good in that, that means you're doing something right from a fantasy perspective. So, Purdy over 4,200 yards passing, 31 touchdowns, which was among the top 10 in the league, actually 3rd best in the whole entire NFL, and had just 11 interceptions. So I expect Purdy to be, again, in the top 5 of the fantasy rankings throughout the year, and that I have for you. Kevin, who's number 4 on your list?
Number 4 on my list is a player who was hurt a year ago.
Okay.
And plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, I'm talking about Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
We've seen what he's capable of doing, right? He got them all the way to the Super Bowl. He's gone toe-to-toe. And you talk about quarterbacks that have gone toe-to-toe with Mr. Mahomes. No one has done it as well as Burrow has done it, because he's actually beat him, right, in Kansas City. All right. Yeah, Kat agrees with me. You hear that? I don't know if you heard that or not, but
I sure did.
Okay, so he's going to be healthy this year, and he still has the weapons out there. And I like some of the things that they've done. Maybe Joe Mixon, we'll have to see how that works, replacing him. But he was a low, he was a quantity guy over quality to me. Joe Mixon was, but I think they can get somebody back there who can play well, and the wide receivers, of course, are still the wide receivers, and so I like what they can do. And if he's healthy, and this comes back to the offensive line, of course, and if he could stop getting sacked 480 times, that would be awesome. But if they can keep it to below 80, all right, Joe Burrow, I think, will put back the numbers that we're used to seeing out of him. So he's number 4 on my list.
I like it. Yeah, Joe Burrow, I mean, better offensive line definitely this upcoming season. Trent Brown was signed in free agency. He'll be on the right side along with Orlando Brown on the left side. I know they lost Joe Mixon, like you said. Zach Moss and Chase Brown will likely be the 2.
Chase Brown is a player I like a lot. And a guy that Billy, we're talking about, belly up fantasy right here. He wanted me to trade him, from my team to his, and I was like, I don't think so.
If Billy's offering something, that's a sign to keep the guy.
Yes, yep. And so, Billy and I have dealt with each other. We've made a trade before, but it wound up getting me Jordan Love, so I didn't hate it. Okay, but yeah, so I'm not trading him out of that backfield. There's a lot of opportunity there, and so Joe Burrow and some weapons they'll go to my number 4 spot.
Okay. Yeah, for me at number 4 is Josh Allen. You mentioned the rushing upside of him. He's gonna create his own plays on the ground. Keon Coleman's gonna be the wide receiver number 1 for Buffalo, along with Khalil Shakir at number 2. So I do expect Allen to produce regardless of losing Stephon Diggs and whatnot. And Dalton Kincaid was a pleasant surprise from a fantasy perspective last year.
He was, and
that will help out.
Yeah, so they've got some weapons at tight end. Okay. And so, as you mentioned, Coleman. So you've got him at 4. I've got him at 2. I think that the weapons are going to help him a lot. And maybe Diggs, as I mentioned, will be one of those where it's a subtraction by addition by subtraction.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
all right, who's number 5 on your list, Kevin?
Number 5 for me. Just speaking of him, because number 5 is C.J. Stroud.
Okay.
On my list, and so hopefully, Mr. Poison Pill doesn't come down to Houston and ruin what they've got going on down there, because they've got some talent, some young players, and C.J. Stroud. You talk about a guy who came out of nowhere. Okay, well, not almost nowhere, because he was the number 2 pick, and so but he was a guy. He's young. He can throw the football. He's got the weapons around him, and so Houston is going to go places. I think that we're supposed to like Jacksonville in this house because they're cats, okay? But Houston, I think, is the team that to watch in that division. They've got the talent, and you've got to take them seriously.
Yeah, I think. For me, Stroud is also number 5 on my list. It was close between him and Hurts for that 5 spot. But I feel like I would rather trust Stroud. He's young. Not that it helps that he's younger. Well, it kind of does. But the point is, weapons all across the field. Yeah, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon.
If Tank Dell could stop getting shot, that would be great. That's
fair. That's fair.
I never did hear anything else about that. We're talking about Tank Dell, and at least I didn't. Was he just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Was it somebody that he was engaging? Mm-hmm. I don't know. But he's fine. Apparently, he's okay. So
yes.
And I've heard nothing about any kind of disciplinary action. So apparently, he had nothing to do with any of it. And so, but when you talk about Tank Dell, I saw that play where he was hurt, and if he can avoid that, Houston's really got some weapons. So
it's gonna be fun over there. Yeah,
really, if all healthy, you gotta like Houston's play a lot.
Okay, yeah, I think that was gonna be okay. It's some 16-year-old kid just pulled out a gun and started doing some dumb stuff. So he'll be fine.
Hopefully, he had his parade rained on. So.
Oh, trust me, I think he has. Okay. But other than that, so that's our rankings for y'all. I know it's early for that, but hey, it's fantasy football, so we gotta.
That's right, fantasy football. Yeah. So I know you weren't ready for this question, but I'm going to throw it to you anyway.
Yeah, of course.
In redraft, when is the earliest you take a quarterback? What round?
How many teams?
It's a 10-team league, let's say, or 10 or even 12 team. Okay, where are you taking your first quarterback? What round?
Round 3.
Okay.
So much talent. It's so much talent to the point where it's like there's gonna be 20 guys you can get before you go get quarterback. But like, I wouldn't let Mahomes fall to like the 4th. I would take my chances and get him in the 3rd before anyone else gets him.
Well, no one's going to let that happen because I keep hearing from experts, all right, that you never draft a quarterback, in the 3rd round. I don't know if you've heard that. I've read it and seen it and talked about, but in drafting with real people, okay, when the 3rd round comes around, the quarterbacks start blowing off the list. So you've got to be ready for that. If you're not going to get involved in that, who are you going to take when it's the fourth or fifth round? But it's easy to say, well, I'm not drafting quarterback in the third until all of a sudden 6 of them are off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to rethink your strategy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. To answer your question, I would go third round would be the soonest I would get a quarterback.
The soonest, yeah. Don't do it in the second.
No.
Okay. Don't
Third.
do it in the first. All right. As I've seen that where you're like, why are you taking him third overall? Okay. Patrick Mahomes is great, but he's not the third overall. And that's where, Superflex kind of balances that out a little bit. Because you've got 2 quarterbacks. So all of a sudden in the first round of a Superflex league, you better take a quarterback.
There you
That's
go.
a little different situation.
Oh, yeah, because you have to have 2 quarterbacks in the Super
You have to have 2. And as we talked about last week, you don't want to be laughed at like you put out on that clip, which I thought was pretty hilarious. Because Daniel Jones is your number 3. That's not good.
Not good at all.
Not good at all. So just be ready for that. So in Superflex, first round, quarterback, doesn't matter what you're 12, 10, first, doesn't matter. You take the quarterback in the first round.
100%. Alrighty. Well, that'll wrap it up for the episode 4 of the Piggin Out Podcast. We appreciate you guys listening. As always, we covered some NBA playoffs today. Before we go, I do want to give you a quick update on the game 1. Celtics up 59-49 over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jalen Brown has 20 points. Derek White has 11. Tatum has 11 as well. Donovan Mitchell has 17 points for the Cavs to lead them. So we'll leave it at that, Kevin. Thank you so much to you as always, sir. I will talk to you next week.
It's always a pleasure.
Oh yeah, 100%. So we'll cover we'll cover a lot more baseball and then NBA playoffs. We'll probably be in the conference. Maybe a conference final match will be set up.
We'll be right there. Yeah, we'll be right there. Unless you're talking about Minnesota, they'll be in there.
They'll be in there.
I'm predicting that. Yeah. So
same here.
So we're ready to be talking about some NBA. We'll be ready to talk about some baseball. We'll sprinkle in some football, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course.
So that gives you something right now to look forward to. Set your watches Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, which I'm advised is where time begins in creation. Okay. And so 7 o'clock Tuesdays, be right here.
Yes, sir. Well, catch us on Spotify, of course, for the audio version of this podcast, and we'll see you guys and YouTube for the video version. So, and look out for clips released throughout the week. Until next week.
Right.